Welcome back to the Rock and Blues Experience. And coming up on this edition, we're going to be talking to the founder member of Barclay James Harvest, John Lees, about the release of their brand new album. It's called Relativity, and it is coming this month. Now, just a quick reminder that you can keep up to date with all of the latest content on the website, www.therockandbluesexperience.com, and indeed on YouTube and Facebook as well, where you can interact and get in touch. Moving on, Steve Hackett was on the show recently, looking ahead to the fall tour of the US, and in 2026 they've just announced a big tour around the UK. Here's a clip then from that feature with Steve, and he's talking about the time that he joined Genesis back in the very early 1970s after he'd placed an ad in Melody Maker, and Peter Gabriel gave him a call. For those who don't know, and there can't be many, but it is still a tale of the times, and it is such a quaint story almost now about how you became involved, running the ad in Melody Maker.
Yes.
And then getting the reply from Peter Gabriel. I mean,
Yes.
So many musicians and bands did exactly that. Advertise themselves, advertise bands. How did he reply? Was it by letter or was it by phone call?
No, it was phone call. Yes, I was lucky. I mean, this was a culmination of 5 years of ads in the back pages of Melody Maker.
Right.
So it sounds like it's, I just put an ad in, and then Pete phones up and says, why don't we do the party right here? That's the Hollywood version. The real version is that it was 5 years of ads, and my ads were rather more humble. Blues guitarist, harmonica player seeks work. Not too many bites there. Then it's, over time, as music changed and as I became a tad more articulate, I think, I was making all these claims about sound like a music professor. I'd really done very little. Everything was aspiration. But on the day that you decide to fake it to make it, on the day that you decide to become a master chef, even if you've never dissected as much as a carrot, that is an important time. I think that the goal is important. Perhaps the dream,
Yeah, sure.
is the most important thing. You must have that. And then things will fall into place. You've got an aim. There's a destination, and the idea is to try and get a band that's one of the best ever. That was my intention. This band I joined, I've been involved with a number of outfits. We've done the odd gig at cricket pitches or pleasure boats down the Thames and stuff like that, and it's all gone nowhere. The whole sort of semi-pro scene and what have you. I thought, let's aim high. And then, having gotten that band, let's try and up the ante, up the game. Let's push everyone to do stuff that's more virtuosic. Let's try and rearm the band. Let's get this, let's get that, let's expand the keyboard arsenal, let's get a light show, let's pay attention to presentation, and I was rather hoping it would be rather more disciplined than what I encountered when I first saw them. They were interesting, but I thought, there's lots more we can do. So I made myself very unpopular within the band immediately by telling everyone what was wrong with it. I had no diplomacy whatsoever, but maybe that's what it needed, and so I doubt they've ever forgiven me.
Those venues and the circuits back then, these days, of course, people want to become famous on social media and go straight to Wembley Arena.
Yes.
Can't imagine them at the Resurrection Club or the Farnham Maltings, Cheltenham College, and you actually played at Eton College back in 1971.
Yes. Funny, isn't it?
That must have been incredible.
Yeah. When I played Eton, it sounds all very, have you still got the regimental tie, the wing collar? And I was literally signing wing collars afterwards, but we played a number of public schools, private schools for the Americans, and we played Stowe. We played, it might have been Cheltenham Ladies College.
Yes, Cheltenham College is on.
That was one of the worst gigs ever. We were looking forward to this, thinking that all these schoolgirls are going to go nuts for us. It was all the boys' schools where they went nuts because they were incarcerated. And one of the gigs we did, I think it was Stowe, I believe it was Charterhouse were on the bill as well. One of their number, I believe, had been at that school. It may have been Roger, I'm not sure. But playing the Cheltenham one was a disaster. I think the girls have been told not to look at us on stage. They were too shy to even look at us or to applaud or to do anything. They all sat there absolutely, resolutely disinterested in the band, completely embarrassed to look at these young men, hairy young men on stage. Someone must have read them the Riot Act and said, "Now, girls, I want you to know that all these young men, you must never speak to them. You mustn't look at them. Don't encourage them. We'll only want your virtue and nothing else." I don't know what they told them. I have no idea.
Well, you can watch that in full on the website or indeed on YouTube. And staying on the subject of humble beginnings, a decade later, the musical landscape was changing. A new breed of heavy metal was emerging under the banner of thrash metal. And hot on the heels of Metallica came Megadeth. Dave Ellefson and Jeff Scott Soto were on the show recently, and they took us back in time to those early days of the 1980s in LA and San Francisco.
I studied the craft of show business as much as I studied the craft of playing music, writing songs, and all that kind of stuff. I understood what it was, and Kiss were my heroes. They were my Beatles. They showed me what it was. So by the time I got to LA, really Ozzy was getting his musicians out of LA. And, that introduced us to Quiet Riot through Randy Rhoads and Rudy Sarzo. Jakey Lee introduced us to Rats and Rough Cuts, and Brad Gillis we knew of Night Ranger, who were, from up in the Bay Area. So, and then Motley came on the scene. And so by the time I got there, all these sort of MTV heroes of mine, Eddie Van Halen, Gene and Paul from Kiss, all these guys were now my neighbors. They were living up in the hills, right up the street from me, And it's that sobering moment where you go from being the fan, they're sort of a pin up on your wall when you're just starting out, to now they're literally right up the street. They're your neighbors. And I'm very fortunate I met Dave. I didn't know who Dave was. Metallica's record had not come out yet. They were a buzz for sure. They were our scene was the next thing up to bat after sort of the hair metal thing of the Sunset Strip that was going on when I got there. But to meet Dave and he really studied Lars. I mean, Lars is the guy. He's the guy that he is the linchpin by which everything happened in our scene. And Dave really mentored under him. He'd always mention, well, Lars would do this and Lars would do that. Da, da, da. So Dave was paying attention, and so we kind of just carbon copied a lot of that. But Dave was very strong in his convictions. He very much had a plan and a vision of how to do things, certainly how not to do things, and how not to do things, which is pretty much how everyone else was doing it. When you'd see, when other bands would have to go up Laurel Canyon and nail handbills, Pretty Boy Floyd and, Jet Boy and, even Poison or whoever, handing handbills, down to the Sunset Strip, sort of leading people to the clubs. First thing Dave said, he goes, "We're not playing any of those clubs in LA." And I was shocked. It's like, what do you mean we're not gonna play? He's like, "This is why I moved here." And he said, "Dude, it's San Francisco. That's where it's at." And that was where his star had been rising in his Metallica days. And he was right. We debuted up there to sold out shows and So he knew, he knew to go to where his audience was, and that was, through his Metallica path. And that's what diverted me. And even in LA, when we played LA, we'd play the country club out in Reseda. We'd play the Balboa Theater. We played these,
Yeah.
kind of like punk rock clubs and theaters. We did not play the Sunset Strip. We played a lot of these outlying areas, which had great fan bases. It's kind of more of a, we were creating thrash metal. I guess it wasn't called thrash metal then, but this punk metal crossover thing that became thrash metal. Suicidal Tendencies were part of this scene. They were very, Venice Beach, skateboard punk rock, that whole thing. So we were kind of landing between hair metal and Black Flag and Fear, and in that, where there's like this channel between all of that, and that's where we kind of serendipitously landed. So it's just interesting how the path goes, and that's what saved me from getting sucked down into could
This
have
fan
been
mix
and also.
vortex.
Yeah, and also ran. I wonder whatever happened to David Ellison. He moved out to Hollywood. We never heard from him again.
Yeah.
Join a Mooney cult. I don't know. There are 20,000 things you could fall into out in L.A. Most of them not good. So I'm forever thankful that. And quite honestly, look, I just followed my instincts. At age 16, I had this feeling. I was rehearsing with my band in the shed on the farm, and I just like, I got to get to LA. I mean, it was such a conviction. It's like, I got to go to the store and get some milk. It was one of those, like, I got to go now. You know what I mean? And it was one of those, like, I got to get to LA, like now, like I'm done now. Let's go. And I just followed that. And, the good Lord above laid the crumbs out. I followed the path, and it led to 1736 North Sycamore, and that's where Dave somehow landed after Metallica. And it was just meant to be. You can't plan this shit. It's just, you look back
I'm
on it, and it's
surprised,
kind of, you're
David. I'm
thankful.
surprised you guys never used that address as a title of an album, because that's
Oh,
really where it all started from. It would have
great
been a great.
title.
And people were like, "What does that mean? What does it stand for?" I mean, it's like, that's where it all started.
That's a
That's
great idea. I
actually
tell
a
you what,
great album
that's a
title.
great idea. Yeah, that'll be it with the picture of the apartment. I'll tell you what, I'll use
The
that
box set.
only if you and I can do "Fooled Around and Fell in Love" by Alvin Bishop, because that is a fucking great song. That is an awesome song.
Dave Ellison and Jeff Scott Soto. You can see that in full on the website and YouTube now. John Lees has been active in the music industry across 7 decades. Beginning back in the 60s, he was a founder member of Barclay James Harvest, and he and they remain active today. They have a new album coming in the next weeks. It is called Relativity. I met up with John at home to talk about the new album and the career of a band who, on occasion, created music history. I wanted to go back to how it began with you. When you were growing up, did you grow up in a very musical house? I mean, I know that you pestered your parents to get you a guitar. Your sister had this boyfriend in the RAF who brought home that Eddie Cochran record.
Oh, you've heard that?
Played to death. Yeah. But was it a musical house? Was there always some music somewhere going on?
Not really, no. We had a piano, but I think that was by somebody giving us one, really. My father played a little bit, but no, it wasn't musical at all, no.
And so your sister, with this dashing boyfriend in the RAF, brings back this record, this Eddie Cochran record. What did it do to you when you put that on and you played it for the first time?
It's there was a few. There's Eddie Cochran, there's Buddy Holly, there was a couple of blues records that were really good. I think it inspired to get a guitar, and I did get a guitar. And my uncle said, if he ever plays that, I'll plat sawdust, which was. he couldn't eat his words because you couldn't eat sawdust, could you? But yeah. So it wasn't. It wasn't a music-friendly environment. I don't think it was. Me off.
But also, as well as Eddie Cochran and Buddy Holly, you discovered some of the real American blues. Jimmy Witherspoon, I believe, was one of the first ones you discovered. And again, this is an amazing discovery for someone whose mind is as young as yours was and open to hearing and taking in all these new sounds and influences.
Well, it was accessible. It was a 3-bar blues and all that bit, and instantly blues music was accessible to help you to play, doing the blues riffs and things and the 3-chord sequences. And it was like a magnet. And a lot of the lads around where we were, a lot of the people, they started off playing blues music because it was, it was less restricted by convention. You could do your own thing. And it was a good way to learn an instrument, and versatile.
So what was your source for listening to music apart from those? I mean, the radio, was it a big thing for you? Could you get Radio Caroline, the pirate stations, maybe the Forces radio you could possibly pick up on medium wave at night? Or were you literally down the record shop with your pocket money every time you managed to get hold of some, buying records?
No, my father was a radio amateur. So we'd access to lots of radio and commercial. And we used to do the old Radio Luxembourg in and out the whistle, fading in and coming back. Only I understood why it was phasing, why it was doing what it was doing, because sometimes there was sunspot maxima and the signal went right round the earth and came back again and slightly out of phase, So I had a good knowledge of what was going on there, so we could always listen to it in a decent way. Yeah. So radio, I would think first, and then when records started becoming really the hit parade and all that bit, then it was the record store.
So you did the graphic design thing. You worked at an ad agency for a short time, but I think you were 19 when you finally made the decision. It was like, no, none of this is for me. Music is where my life is going to be. Yeah, this is what I want to do.
We had an opportunity. I mean, there were the 4 of us. Willie and I had been at art school and gone into art and design. Les and Mel were from a different part of town. Mel was a plumber. Les worked in a men's shop selling clothes. We were gigging around and we got the opportunity to give it a try in an experimental way to see if we could write some songs. And we were fortunate. There was a local businessman who fancied owning a band. He financed that early part of it, when we ran out of money. So, luck, I think, has played a big part in it. We're just at the right place at the right time.
It was a real proving ground, wasn't it? Art school, all over the country. I mean, but you were at the Oldham School of Art, wasn't it? And you had all these bands, the Sorcerers, the Blues Keepers. And by the way, the names of the bands then were fantastic. I mean, the Sorcerers is just a great name. And if you had suddenly become the Blues Keepers, it sounds like something that John Mayall would have been playing from. But what was the objective? I mean, you mentioned Les Mel, who came in from a couple of other bands, Heart and Soul and Wicked. What was the objective musically for you at that time? Did you want to be pop stars, rock stars? Because, prog didn't really exist as a form of music at that time.
I think we wanted to be successful musically as opposed to having to make a living in another way. It looked like if you got it right, it looked like a real money spinner, I suppose that was the main reason for it. But when we started to write, it became evident that we were kind of in this folk rock oblivion, where things that, no matter how we tried to emulate other things like the Beatles or whatever, it came out in a totally different way for us, which was like the name Barclay James Harvest, it was that kind of weirdness that stamped it apart, moved it apart from everything else for us. And we were listening to a lot of the West Coast stuff at the time as well. Love, Forever Changes, Vanilla Fudge, Buffalo Springfield.
Oh, what a fantastic band they were.
Yeah.
Vanilla Fudge.
Yeah. So all those kind of influences were coming, we were trying to incorporate some of it in our writing, I suppose. But then all this underlying, folky stuff with the cello and recorders and tenor horns, and then the mellotron when we couldn't get as good as we wanted out of that. And then the mellotron stamped us with this orchestral, title. And
the name Barclay James Harvest. I mean, there was a lot of discussion about this over the years. Didn't have anything to do with the record label Harvest. So this was literally ideas pulled from a hat.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the last three pieces of paper in the hat. The Barclay was Barclay's Bank. James was the guy that had been in the group, and Harvest was because of the farmhouse. And it was literally, and they didn't come out in that order. But we jigged about with it, and then, what a mistake, we should have been The Who or something like that, simple. I was used to make this joke about you go into the record store and ask for, I want that single by Harvest Bar, give me The Who.
You were creating quite a buzz around the area. You talked about the businessman John Crowther who decided he saw a future in you. And this used to happen quite often. Businessmen suddenly waking up to, we can make some serious money here off the back of these kids. He saw this future. You got the farmhouse to go and practice in. You even had a feature appearing on Granada television. I mean, that must have been a big thing as well, because pop music and rock music were viewed with suspicion by the establishment.
I mean, I don't think it was a money thing with John. I think it was a kudos more than anything. I mean, and the Granada thing came through him because he had they were called boutiques at the time. He's a fashion guy, and very successful in the retail clothing industry. And they'd done a documentary on his boutique, on him. And so when, I suppose, the follow-on was that we were there, he had this band, and I think that's kind of the way we got with, Scene at 6:30, I think it was called, yeah.
So you were honing your craft live. The college circuit was huge in the late 60s and the 70s. Looking back at your live history, and it's all a bit sketchy, but it was 58 years ago to the day, tomorrow, on September the 13th, that you played at the Roundhouse in London. So was that the first major gig in a big venue in London that you'd done?
I've no idea. I do remember the gig, The Gun, I think, didn't we?
And then the November of that year, you played at a place called Porchester Hall with Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
And Edgar Broughton. So, I mean, you can just start to see the beginnings of this, going from, a seed into a fully grown.
I think that the first people we were with was Black Hill Enterprises, which was Andrew King and Peter Jenner. And they had Pink Floyd, they had Edgar Broughton, I think they might have had Pete Green, Per Blocto, because he did many things, Pete Green, didn't he, apart from writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a funny time because we were based in Manchester, and we would go down, many times we'd go down to London and come back the same after a gig, and then go down the day after. We never actually were in that London scene with Floyd and all those other people. We were way out, and I think that probably was more. It affected how we were seen in England. I think had we been in London and gone to London, we would have been, a bigger act.
It was surprising. I did read you talking about this over time, and at that point, like so many who had put in all the road work around the regions, which you had done. The next logical step was literally, hey guys, I've got the van, pile in the van, and we'll all go off down to London. We'll all live in one bedroom flat, all 8 of us. But you didn't do it. Was there a reason why you didn't do it? Was somebody else in the band saying, I just want to come back home,
No, I think it was our roots. It might have been financial, but it was very much our roots, actually. We were rooted in Manchester and that area, and it never... We used to stay in Sussex Gardens when we recorded at EMI, and that was the reality of 4 beds, 5 beds in a room, everybody, and that would go on for as long as we were recording. So that didn't inspire us to go there. I think we were homebirds, yeah.
So the landscape was changing a lot. We started to see a lot of bands, pop bands especially, changing track. This explosion of prog rock, or progressive rock as it was first known, a term that was first seen on the Notes Inside Caravan's debut album. That was the first time progressive rock apparently had been used as a term. And I remember talking to Derek Shulman, saying how he'd had enough of the pop business. He was with a band called Simon Dupree and the Big Sound back then.
Oh, yeah.
And they all left and went and started Gentle Giant.
Yeah.
So there was this big movement. I mean, you certainly weren't alone out there.
I don't know. I don't think we initially. I mean, it's prog now. It's called prog rock now. But when we were operating, when we were first writing and all the rest of it, we felt ourselves as underground. We referred to ourselves as playing underground music. Why? I don't know. But it seemed to me that underground became prog. I don't, that way around. And yeah. And Pink Floyd and Edgar Broughton and all these people. Roy Harper was another one. Operating underground in terms of under what's popular.
Yeah, that. People love to catalogue and label, don't they? Bands and music. And there was always this link between, Moody Blues or Genesis or Floyd. And the link, obviously, with the Mellotron. When you look back now, there wasn't much of a likeness to the Moody Blues. They seemed much more mainstream and maybe pop-orientated than you ever were.
Oh, yeah. But this is why I say that, it was, the genre was, I'm sure it was underground, and we came from the underground.
Yeah. So you had people championing you in the media as well. I mean, you'd appeared on John Peel's show, which was always great publicity back there. And not only John Peel, but Alan Freeman was a massive fan as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, yeah. And I met him a couple of times. Yeah, he was a massive fan, yeah. Surprising. But accessibility of the music. It doesn't have to be pop to be accessible, does it?
Yeah. Well, there was a good point made back at the time because prog bands didn't release top-selling singles. So literally it was all about album sales and live gigs, especially for revenue. And in those early years, when you look back at the package tours and the festivals, you played some amazing gigs and bands. You played with Yes, you played with Savoy Brown. I saw one date you were doing with David Bowie. And then one of the standouts was in February of 1970 when you played with Led Zeppelin in Edinburgh. Do you remember that?
No.
Really?
No, I don't know. Honestly, I saw somebody put a ticket on. Yeah, did that actually happen?
Well, it's no good asking me.
I got somewhere in the memory.
I wasn't there.
I've got a thought that they didn't turn up. I don't know why.
Well, that will be one for somebody If there's anybody watching this or listening to this who turned up in Edinburgh in 1970 on February the 17th, hoping to see Led Zeppelin, but they never showed, then do let us know.
I remember playing with them at Ali Pali. Yeah, that was a big, massive gig, yeah.
And again, the festival lineups, when you look back now, they almost seem surreal that you could get this much quality and this amazing lineups together. And you'd come across things like the Wheelie Festival in Clacton, where you play with Mott the Hoople and Quo and Rory Gallagher. Was there a competitive nature at the time between the bands appearing on these gigs? I mean, would you watch them and think, right, we got to make sure we're better than them? Or was it all very friendly and there was no rivalry?
No, I don't remember meeting anybody at Wheelie Festival. It was absolute chaotic. Just got on the stage, did your thing, and then got out of there as quick as you could. So, yeah, Mungo Jerry was there, wasn't he? But that was a bigger hit from that.
Yes.
And that's where we met, where we started a relationship with a guy called Lindsay Brown, who's a very dear friend now. And he was it was Red Buzz Records, I think, and they had a red bus there, I remember, and he was on the bus, yeah. But other than that,
when you look back at that,
Hell's Angels took the stage over on the security for the stage, and it got to one point where they wouldn't let the bands on, and it got, running fights with security and Hell's Angels, and it was absolute chaos.
It's all a bit genteel now, isn't it? Yeah. It's all about corporate boxes.
How the hell we played with the orchestra? We did. How the hell that it actually happened, I do not know.
When you look back at that decade, right, in the 70s, your work rate as a band was simply off the scale.
Yeah.
10 studio albums, then adding the touring schedule. And if you look at the schedule, you would be doing summer and winter tours. How did you survive that level of work without falling into that sea of arguments about artistic differences? More importantly, how did you steer clear of the drink and drugs?
I've no idea. It was tough. It was really tough. It sounds like a really fantastic lifestyle, but when you're living out of suitcases and you're changing hotels every day and travelling overnight and all the other things, and looking back now, we survived.
Not easy though. When you looked at the others that were falling by the wayside. Stress, mental and physical, must have been incredible. All of those tours, the costs that were involved, and you were saying that literally you would be breaking even. So your focus begins to switch to Europe. Germany in particular took to you in a really big way. Gone to Earth being the first album which became a platinum selling album. But then you make a very good point, because as you move to Europe, the venues are bigger, the audiences are bigger, and there's more money. So it's simple economics, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was still the same criteria. Everything was, the last 2 weeks were key, because all the money before that was to pay for the thing actually happening. You weren't actually into profit until the last 2 weeks. So that's probably one of the reasons why we knew we got to do this. It's a commitment. You don't fall off the lorry before you get to the end. But it allowed us to do bigger venues, bigger shows. But then it had the adverse effect of meant that the shows became too big then to bring back into England, because there weren't the super venues that there are now then. Most venues were 1,500, 2,000 seaters, and maybe smaller.
In Germany, the scene of two of those incredible live events, first up in Berlin in front of the Reichstag, in front of 250,000 people. What did you feel the moment that you turned a corner, walked into the sunlight or the rain, if it was raining, and you see this mass of people that literally is as far as the eye can see? I mean, going from playing to, 2,000 and 3,000 in the UK, or maybe 10,000 at a festival, 250,000 people.
I was terrified, absolutely terrified. I thought somebody was going to assassinate one of us because of making a statement in, where it was in front of the Reichstag. It's like a horseshoe of the wall round. There were people on the other side getting arrested for trying to listen to the music. Just terrified. And then it's such a large amount of people in front of you. You can't possibly react. You just get on and play the music. It's a very funny, I've told this story many times, it's a very funny story. When we were about to go on stage, I kind of jumped the gun. There was a ramp to the back of the stage, and that went up to the stage where you went and played. And I jumped the gun. I didn't realise that the rest of the band weren't behind me. So I went up the ramp, and I'm halfway up the ramp, and the guy who was the stage manager at the time, a guy called Simon Renshaw, who went on famously to manage ZZ Top and the Dixie Chicks. He was at the top of the ramp, and he was trying to clear everybody off the ramp for the band to come up. So he's shouting down the microphone, "Everybody, the band are coming on stage. Get off the ramp, clear the ramp for the band." So I heard this, and I turned round and started walking back down the ramp, and he shouted after me, "Not you, you're in the band." It was expletive to release it, a few expletives silly. So that shows you what kind of state I was in going onto stage. It was terrifying. Yeah.
Of more significance, really, it was the 750th anniversary of the founding of the city of Berlin, and you becoming the first Western band to play in the old GDR. Now, how did this happen? How did the contact come about?
I think initially when we did the free concert in West Berlin, I think they wanted to do a mirror concert in East Berlin, but there was no mechanism for doing it free. And if it wasn't free, it wasn't going to be done. When it got to the Berlin anniversary, we were asked again to go in to do a gig on something called the Island of Youth in Treptow Park. And because it was going to be free, we thought, that's okay, we'll do it. So we went there to do it, and it became quite obvious that there was some kind of scheme to prioritise other people over, party workers over normal people. So we were going to pull the plug on it until they said, well, we'll take it off this Island of Youth, we'll put it in the park itself, and we'll make it free, fine. So we did. I think there was about 190,000 people there. A lot of young people. Great, very spoke great English, American accents. Really nice, and the atmosphere was great. It was really, really good. But I always remember they had hard currency hotels by that time, so you were staying in a hotel where they wouldn't take East German money; they'd only take dollars. And Melanie got in the lift. And this guy got in after us, and we both looked at him, and we went up to our floor. And as we came out of the lift, he was still in the lift. And I looked at Mel and I said, "Was that who I think it was?" He said, "Yeah, it was Robert Maxwell."
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And we're thinking, crikey, what's he doing in East Berlin? Why wouldn't he be there? I don't know. So it's all added to the trip to East Berlin. Yeah, and we went.
Were you given a list of what you could and couldn't do, or what you could and couldn't say, or what you could and couldn't play?
No, but we had very nice young guys and a girl attached to us that minded us all the way. They gave us expenses in East German currency, which was, it's okay in East Germany, but it was, confetti anywhere else. So I remember giving all this money to these two kids, and it was like 6 months' rent for them, So, but we went on to, at the same time, we went to Brandenburg, which was a steel town where they'd made the gates, the Brandenburg gates. And then we went on to, I can't, the name escapes me now, but yeah, we did another couple of gigs there. And
if you add in
we went to
all of
Dresden.
the other...
We went to Dresden.
Oh, Dresden.
And it was a massive
okay.
shock to see the state of the place. Was just incredible. Just a ruin. But we did a gig there.
When you add in all the other incredible venues that you played, the Herodian Theatre in Athens with that floodlit Acropolis in the background, what was your favourite venue? What was your favourite live gig that the band have played?
There's so many. Lorelei was great. A great experience, and a sad experience because Wooly left the band after that. But that was the first, where you looked and you thought, "Blimey, what's going on here?" There was just a sea of lights as far as you could see, and the river, the Rhine's there, below you, and yeah, that was a very special moment when we really realised that something was happening, in Europe that wasn't anywhere else, for us.
So let's come up to date then with Relativity. What is an album which I thought sits very comfortably alongside the best stuff that you've produced?
It started 7 years ago, or a bit more, and we'd recorded 2 songs, Blood of Abraham and River. Well, what's the one that we're playing? I'll have to look now. My memory. Peace Like a River. There were the 2 that started it, and there was, it's COVID. There were some health issues with me, my wife, my daughter, which thankfully have all gone now, and things, and other things like playing, tours and stuff and doing festivals that kind of stopped us doing a continuous recording. But people work as well, so we had to choose carefully as and when we dipped in. It took 7 years, and the only thing that prompted it was the actual amount of time we got. We realised we'd already got 70 odd minutes of music and that perhaps we should curtail this, and
I was going to say, you are on a creative roll here. 78 minutes in total. Now, a lot of bands and artists find it difficult after decades in the business to not just repeat and replicate. So how difficult or easy is it to deliver something that resonates with the fans, makes them want to buy it, obviously, but has a degree of freshness about it?
It was always our intention when Willie and I got back together to return the band to a partnership. That means everybody involved. And when he was gone, we carried that on. And I think that's what makes it unique. Is it's 4 people, 4 individuals working on writing an arrangement, a shared responsibility. 4 heads are better than 1. They've got to be. And I think that's what brings...
I've got to mention, Stephen Taylor, the producer, was something of a masterstroke, wasn't it? I mean, his resume over the last 5 decades is beyond impressive.
Yeah.
Rush, Tina Turner, Stevie Nicks. And the first album that he worked on in the 70s is one that's in the rack of CDs behind me. Tommy Boland's Private Eyes. Whose choice was it? How did he come to be involved in the project?
He's done things for us before, and he's done back catalogue for us before. And our common denominator is Mark Powell, who's been a great friend and promoter of the band. Probably wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Mark. And normally on an album basis like this, we would have mixed it ourselves. But the 7-year period, we just felt that someone like Stephen doing all the mixes would give a continuity to it that we wouldn't be able to. And he'd be coming from a totally different angle, and it's worked. He's done an incredible job.
he specializes as well, doesn't he, in creating these spectacular 5.1 surround sound mixes. And he's done exactly that here, because there's an array of different product here. You know, the CD, there's deluxe packages, there's vinyl, but there is also this Blu-ray 5.1 mix to which this music lends itself extremely well. You know, I mean, you put this on and the sound just resonates around the whole room. It really is a great experience.
I've not heard it. I'm stereo only.
It's another Led Zeppelin moment.
We're due to have a listen to it in 5-1. Yeah, and I'm quite looking forward to that.
The beauty actually is of the album is the sound is ageless.
Yeah.
You know, you put it on, and this could have been something from the 70s, it could have been from the 80s, it could have been from yesterday. You've got no idea how old the people are that are involved in producing it, unless you know how long they've been in the business. It sounds like it'd be somebody that, I don't know, is straight out of art school who's put together something. It just sounds ageless, and that's why I thought it carried itself so well.
Relativity.
Yes.
Yeah. It's still relevant. Yeah. Yeah, it's still relevant. That's great. That's what we aim to do, to be a constant in a variable space. You know, you can always guarantee that if you buy that or if you play that Barclay James Harvest record, it's continuity with what's been gone before. Whether anything else comes, I don't know, but there's certainly a lot of
the subject matter. I mean, again, human and cosmic interaction, relationships and evolution and afterlife. And the title is basically about looking back at humanity and evolution.
I mean,
is that a fair way of summing it up?
I mean, there are two songs on here, Relativity, Part 1 and Part 2.
Yeah.
The working title for Relativity, Part 1, was Through the Dust. That was the working title. And the working title for Relativity Part 2 was From Stars That Shine. And if you listen to the lyrics in the two, that's where Jez came up with this thing saying, Relativity, there's a really good quote by it's not recognised as, people say it's like Albert Einstein, but it's not attributed to him. But it's a marvellous, I don't know whether you've heard the quote, I've got it somewhere here, and it's quite good actually. Gravitation cannot be held responsible for people falling in love. How on earth can you explain, in terms of chemistry and physics and importance and biological phenomena, as first love? Put your hand on a hot stove for a minute and it seems like an hour. Sit with that special person for an hour and it seems like a minute. That's relativity. And that quote came into the creative process halfway through the album, because we realised that there was a common thread running through all this, looking back, looking forwards, looking into the future, old memories, new memories. Yeah.
You can't help but wonder here after listening to the full 78 minutes that this
don't
was
think that
great
we are gone.
Live.
Don't think that we are gone. We are merely yesterday.
Oh, that is a great line. That is a great line. So just going back there, after listening to it, you sat there and you think, this would make a great live show. So what do you think?
There are no plans. I mean, it will totally depend on my mental state and how this product does, really.
But you must be upbeat about it. I mean, for something that has been in the making for so long, it doesn't sound disjointed in any way.
No, and I think that's a lot of that's to Stephen, that's taken, like the introduced it. Well, maybe not, but just the continuity of one person giving you their mix on this. I think that was a really, really good thing to do. And I've no expectations.
No or low? You must have expectations. I mean, it's a...
I'm not...
No?
Honestly, no expectations. I mean, it's England, isn't it? You know.
The other thing worth a mention here, by the way, is that there is also a previously unreleased live show from Rossfest in Pennsylvania back in 2009. Woody was playing with you there as well. That's another nice inclusion on this package.
Yeah, it is. And that was fortuitous at the time that it did get recorded and then discovered later on, yeah. And that's it's classic Woody.
And so that brings it to a close then. When you sit and look back at these last 59 years, you've got to keep going for another couple because everybody will be expecting a celebration for these 60 years, which comes up next year.
Oh, God. I had a run-in with a fan in Germany last year, and he said, why are you stopping touring? I said, because I'm 78 going 79. I'm old. And he said, Mick Jagger's still going and he's 80, whatever it was. I'm not Mick Jagger. I'm not madly wealthy and, you know.
But tell me, that aside, and yes, everybody is getting older, do you still enjoy it? Do you still like making music and playing music?
Yeah, I still write songs. And like I said, there was a mountain of material still there that the four of us have put together that we haven't even worked on yet. This 7 minutes is the tip of an iceberg, believe me. Yeah, we were out in Germany last week doing a TV show, and we did some radio interviews after the TV show where Craig and I played that Peace Like a River on acoustic guitars. Unbeknown to us, one of them, we was doing it for a radio station. We didn't know that they had invited an audience, and that could be a bit seat of the pants. But yeah, when I'm actually doing it, I enjoy it. It's all the run up to it and thinking about it that's gone down, Nick, with age.
John Lee's there from Barclay James Harvest. The new album, Relativity, is out this month, and it's very good. And that is it then for now. Don't forget you can stay in touch via the website at www.therockandbluesexperience.com or Facebook or YouTube. Coming up next week, we are going to be talking to Ronnie Romero about his new solo album that's going to be heading your way this month. It is called Backbone, and if you're a fan of the classic hard rock, this is one of the best of a genre released this year, and easily the best thing that Ronnie has recorded up to now. His voice is sounding incredible. There's a great lineup of guests on the album, and even Russ Ballard has weighed in with a song on the album as well. So join us for that next week. That is it then for now from me, Tim Cable. Until next week, bye-bye for now.